Chapter 2202. This must be Yiqing Luo's nonsense. He wanted to use the profound palace to pull him down. Director, what should we do? Xiang and the director thought of the same thing. Xiang felt the same way too. How could things be so coincidental? Why would the Lord of the Profound Palace specially look for Yiqing Luo to ask about the Heavenly Academy? Not to mention whether the Profound Palace would pay so much attention to the Heavenly Academy. Even if they really wanted to ask about the situation of the Heavenly Academy, then the one. If it was not Grand Elder Yun, then it should be the president of the faculty council. No matter what, it couldn't be Yiqing Luo. Xiang, the only one I can trust is you. This dean will absolutely not let that bitch oust this dean. The director grabbed Xiang's shoulder. You help me keep an eye on that slut, see who she wants to promote to be the dean. Then tell this matter to the president of the faculty council, Yen Mu. President C? Xiang was stunned. He is just a student, tell him. You don't need to know why. In short, as long as she is sure who she wants to promote as the dean, tell Yen Mu. Yen Mu will think of a way for me. The director's face was gloomy, his tone was sinister. As long as we get through these 3 days, when I get out, everything will be settled. Xiang looked at the director's confident expression, although he was curious about the relationship between Yen Mu and the director, but he still nodded obediently and replied, Director, don't worry, I will keep an eye on Yiqing Luo. The dean calmed his heart and looked at Xiang. With a smile on his face, he patted Xiang's shoulder heavily and said, Xiang, as long as I can keep my position as the dean, I will definitely uphold justice for you as the first elder. Xiang's eyes lit up, his face was filled with joy. Yun had been pressing on his head for so many years. And every time he would put on a nice guy look, constantly stopping any decision he made. If the Grand Elder became him, he could trample on Yun fiercely. A sharp glint flashed past Xiang's eyes. He smiled and bowed to the director. I am willing to serve the dean till my death. The two looked at each other and laughed softly. In the dark night, no one noticed that a petite figure in red was leaning leisurely against a wooden pillar at the entrance of the ancestral hall. The moonlight seemed to coat the girl with a layer of silver brilliance. It made the young girl look like a fairy that had descended from the heavens. Her lips curled into a teasing smile as she stared at the ancestral hall with a faint smile. Everything that was said in the ancestral hall was clearly heard by her. He had to admit that the heavenly dean had some brains to be able to be the dean for so many years. At the very least, he had guessed correctly that she had used the upper profound hall to scheme against him. However, so what if he guessed correctly? He was trapped in the ancestral hall and his reputation had plummeted. What kind of storm could he set off in 3 days? 3 days. It could change many things. Looking for Yen Mu for help? The girl sneered. His figure suddenly seemed to melt into the air bit by bit, disappearing into thin air. The next day, Yiqing Luo led the 10 students she had chosen, and under the guidance of Yun Duan, they headed towards the class of gods to report. Just as he walked out of the devil class courtyard, then he was surrounded by a large group of students from different classes. This made the students of the devil class feel overwhelmed by the favor. One must know that in the past, no matter where they appeared, they would be treated with disdain by the other students, or even directly humiliated by them. Although later on they won the championship in the inter-class competition. And there were some people who supported them. Chapter 2203. But after this school's exchange meeting, after the misfortune in the West Continent, the students towards these young boys and girls in devil class all admired them from the bottom of their hearts. What they admired? Not only the devil class's ability, it was also the spirit and faith that they had passed on. These youngsters were no longer the ones whom they mocked and ridiculed in the past. They relied on their own strength, persevered in the training, using their strong willpower to create a miracle that belonged to them. All these left a deep impression in the hearts of the students. It also gave the students a strong belief. They wanted to change themselves. They wanted to become strong. They wanted to not be looked down upon by others. Then they would rely on their own efforts, their own willpower, their own confidence. In each and every failure, reflect on themselves, break through themselves. Create a miracle that belonged to them. These students who were once called trash had done it. Then they, the elite students who were selected by the Heavenly Academy, possessed a much stronger innate talent than the youngsters in devil class. They would definitely be able to do it to become stronger. A place where ability reigned supreme. Ability was the best way to conquer people's hearts. Under the respectful escort of a bunch of students, the devil class students were sent to the entrance of the class of gods courtyard. Yun Duan stopped in his tracks and looked at Yiqing Luo amiably. Student Yiqing Luo, this is the class of gods. Please lead the students in. Elder Yun Duan is not going in? Yiqing Luo looked curiously at this place which the Heavenly Academy regarded as the God Institute. From the looks of it, there was no special difference from their devil class courtyard. The exterior design, decor, style, were exactly the same as the current devil class courtyard which had been cleaned up. The only difference was, it was the plaque above the courtyard. Written in flamboyant calligraphy, were the words Class of Gods. Class of Gods is a very special existence in the Heavenly Academy. It's similar to the Heavenly Hall. If there's no urgent matter, not only the elders, even the dean cannot enter. Yun Duan explained. Then, can I still come out during the special training? Yiqing Luo asked again. Of course you can, as long as the special training assigned by the Class of Gods Master is completed. You can leave the Class of Gods anytime. Yun Duan seemed to see through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. You can also return to devil class anytime. Yiqing Luo let out a sigh of relief. If he couldn't leave the god class after entering. As for the dean's matters, she could not interfere. What an interesting game. It would be too boring if he couldn't interfere. Then we'll go in first. Yiqing Luo looked at the wide-opened courtyard door of the I class, and it was filled with a vast expanse of white rays, unable to see the scene inside clearly. Cloud smiled and nodded. The 11 people from the devil class stepped into the courtyard of the class of gods one after another. When the last person disappeared into the white light, the courtyard door, which had been opened wide, suddenly closed. The surrounding students exclaimed in surprise. Their eyes were filled with envy as they pointed at the yard of the class of god and discussed animatedly. Behind the crowd, Yun Xiang, who was dressed in a white robe, stared gloomily at Yiqing Luo and the others who had entered the class of gods, as a chilly glint flashed past his eyes. The special training for the class of gods lasted for a month. In this 1 month, Yiqing Luo probably didn't have the energy to find trouble with the director. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity, together with Si Yen Mu, to make use of Yiqing Luo to go to the profound hall, deliberately fabricate the news that she wanted to abolish the director, and spread it throughout the academy. Chapter 2204. When Yiqing Luo and the rest entered the class of gods, everyone immediately felt a ripple-like feeling envelop their bodies. The few of them sucked in a breath of cold air as they instinctively moved closer to Yiqing Luo's direction as they released their senses vigilantly. That feeling of rippling water slowly spread out from Yiqing Luo's silhouette. Yiqing Luo wasn't unfamiliar with this feeling. When she entered the hall master's bedroom in the upper profound hall, she had felt this kind of airflow feeling. This is a high-grade enchantment. Old Man Song explained in her mind. This kind of enchantment can only be created by cultivators with profound cultivation, at least sky profound 8th grade and above. Your cultivation is too low, so when you pass through this kind of high-grade enchantment, you will feel the fluctuation of the enchantment. High-grade enchantment? Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. What's the difference between this and Feng Ling's enchantment? Old Man Song replied. In Nirvana realm, Feng Ling's grade of enchantment master is not bad, and she is very talented in enchantment. But the enchantment and one's own profound energy are inseparable. No matter how powerful her enchantment is, your profound grade is above hers. Although her enchantment can trap you, but it won't affect you too much. In other words, class of gods enchantment, not only could it trap her, it would also affect her. Old Man Song saw that she didn't speak for a long time, so he persuaded, you don't need to mind it, didn't that elder said earlier, as long as you complete the training mission, you can leave the class of gods anytime. Yiqing Luo responded. Enchantment. No wonder it's the high class of gods. This courtyard's entrance even has an enchantment. Qiao Jing clicked his tongue. We also have an array. Yan Xiao Yi snorted in her eyes. No class could be compared to their devil class. Let's not talk about this for now. The most important thing now is to find the academy that we are going to. Long Yunzhan's cold voice rang. The 10 over people surveyed the surroundings and all kept silent. In their imagination. After entering the class of gods, They would be dazzled by the splendor, gold and jade splendor, the high-class atmosphere. But who knew? After they entered the class of gods, it was a vast expanse of whiteness in front of them. If the few of them were a little further away, that meant that he couldn't see the other party at all. It turned out that when they entered the gates of the class of gods courtyard, the vast expanse of whiteness wasn't created by the class of gods to act mysterious. It was true, a vast expanse of whiteness. He could not see the road ahead, nor could he see the road behind. What the hell is this place? There's not even a guide. Is this how the class of gods treats its students? Baiming Lulu frowned in displeasure. Class of gods has never treated the students of the Heavenly Academy as their classmates. Tong Ziqing sneered. Indeed, in the Heavenly Academy the class of gods was a legendary existence. How could the students of the class of gods care about the other students? Yes. I've asked around before coming here. And Rupin lowered her voice and whispered, the instructors of the class of god are experts from the upper realm. Upper realm? The youths widened their eyes in astonishment. A person from the upper realm coming to the Nirvana realm to be a teacher, isn't that destroying the balance of the Nirvana realm? Chapter 2205. People from the upper realm head to the lower realm to guide the extremely talented cultivators, which is a common occurrence in the upper realm. Because they are nurturing their realm's future elites. Hearing Qiao Jin's explanation, Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly. Which is to say, Nirvana realm as a lower realm. All those who are eliminated by the upper realm will stay in the lower realm, while those who are chosen by the upper realm will be nurtured to their satisfaction and brought back to the upper realm? Qiao Jin's thin lips curled into a ridiculing smile. Right, this is what those sanctimonious hypocrites from the upper realm say. To the upper realm and other realms. The Nirvana realm was an abandoned place. And this kind of abandoned place, if there were one or two good breeds, they would first nurture them for a period of time and see if they could be brought back to their realm. No wonder the students from the class of God were spread to be so miraculous. Upper realm hypocrites? Jinzi, how do you know the people from the upper realm said such things? And Ruopan heard Qiao Jin's words and sensed something different. Right, and it sounds like Jinzi is very familiar with the upper realm. Baiming Lulu nodded in agreement. Dan Baishi also nodded. Jinzi, why are you so familiar with the upper realm's matters? Quickly tell us, do you know anyone from the upper realm? Qiao Jin's expression changed greatly from being questioned. He hurriedly hid behind his wife. Yan Shaoyi couldn't wait to strangle Qiao Jin to death. This was obviously Qiao Jin's own fault and he actually hid behind her. But Qiao Jin was the descendant of the Huangfu family from the heaven realm of the upper realm. It had to be kept a secret. It wasn't that they didn't trust their own brother. But this kind of matter, the fewer people who knew, the safer it would be. Just as the couple was racking their brains thinking of how to avoid this question, Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her arm. Stop fooling around, smell carefully, do you smell anything? The few who were fooling around immediately restrained their expressions. The few of them sniffed seriously and shook their heads. No. Wait. Baiming Lulu cried out. I think I smell it. What do you smell? The other students asked curiously. Baiming Lulu looked at Yiqing Luo with uncertainty. I smell the smell of pills. Medicinal pills? The students were puzzled. They moved their noses and sniffed for a long time, but they didn't smell any medicinal pills. Yiqing Luo nodded. Yes, it's the smell of medicinal pills. When Baiming Lu appeared, she immediately smiled and heaved a sigh of relief. Yiqing Luo took a look at the 10 people beside her. Since we can't find the way, then let's follow the smell of the medicinal pills. As long as we can see a figure, then we will be able to find the academy. The 10 of them had no objections. Yiqing Luo and Baiming Lulu used their noses to lead the way. The 11 people walked for about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. The white mist of immortal qi in the surroundings gradually faded. They could vaguely see a large door in front of them that seemed to be rippling in the white mist. It was getting closer. Everyone could clearly see that it was indeed a large door. There was also a huge stone statue of a phoenix lying in front of the door, ready to take flight. The feathers of the fiery red phoenix shone with red light. It looked very lifelike. At first glance, it was somewhat similar to her family's Qi Yan. Qing Luo looked behind the stone statue. Chapter 2206. Yiqing Luo shifted her vision from the stone statue to the direction which Yan Shaoyi was pointing at. Indeed, behind that stone statue sat a young man who was eating something while leaning against the wall. The young man looked handsome and he gave off a lazy aura. He was holding a jade bottle in his hand and was pouring something out from it, stuffing it into his mouth. It was a medicinal pill. It was the medicinal pill which Yiqing Luo and Beiming Lulu had smelled. The young man didn't seem to notice that someone was approaching. He chewed the medicinal pill in his mouth for a while before pouring another pill and throwing it into his mouth. He was eating it with great relish. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo could clearly smell the medicinal pill's fragrance, she almost thought that this young man was eating an ordinary candy. It'll be easier if there's someone around. He must be a student from the class of God, let him lead the way. Yan Shaoyi walked up in quick steps, until Yiqing Luo stopped in front of the young man. The young man then slowly raised his head as he swept a lukewarm glance at Yan Shaoyi. That gaze seemed to be sweeping germs. Yan Shaoyi could clearly feel the disdain in the young man's gaze. Yan Shaoyi's explosive temper instantly couldn't take it. What's with that gaze? What did I do to you? Is there a need to look at me with such disdain? Xiao Jin hurriedly chased up as he pulled Yan Shaoyi's arm and brought her into his arms. Shaoyi, don't be rash. We're in their territory now, so calm down, calm down. Yan Shaoyi hadn't said a word. That young man threw the jade bottle and kept it into his sleeves as he shot a glance at the furious-looking Yan Shaoyi with a smile which didn't look like a smile as he scoffed. Yan Shaoyi instantly exploded. Stinky brat. What's with your attitude? Do you think you're very handsome and think that I'm here to strike up a conversation with you? What's there to be arrogant about? The young man glanced at Xiao Jin lazily as he ridiculed. Your eyesight is so bad, but I'm very assured. His words had a hidden meaning, apparently mocking Xiao Jin's ordinary looks. Yan Shaoyi could bear with it when she herself suffered grievances. But when she heard someone attacking her man, her temper flared up in an instant. Just because of your honor? I don't like you at all. You're so ugly that even the gods would be enraged. You're ugly to a whole new level. Yan Shaoyi retorted without holding back. Shaoyi. When Xiao Jin saw that his wife was so protective of him, he was very pleased in his heart. However, the current situation wasn't suitable for any conflict with the students of the class of gods. Xiao Jin hugged Yan Shaoyi tightly as he consoled her softly. Shaoyi, I don't care what others say about me. Don't clash with him, leave this to Qing Luo. Yan Shaoyi felt suffocated. He couldn't get rid of it no matter what. I'm sorry, this sister of mine has a bad temper, but she doesn't have any ill intentions. Tong Ziqing walked slowly to Yan Shaoyi's side and gently patted the back of her hand. Following that, her cold gaze landed on the young man. We are the students from the devil class that won the Heavenly Academy's inter-class competition. Can you lead the way and bring us to the academy? When Tong Ziqing walked out, the young man's eyes were fixed on Tong Ziqing. Tong Ziqing was silent for a moment when she saw that he was silent. Then she took out 2 medicine bottles from her interspatial pocket. These were pills which Beiming Lulu had specially refined according to Yiqing Luo's prescription. If this student is willing to lead the way, these 2 bottles of middle-grade pills will be our thanks. Tong Ziqing said as she walked to the front of the young man and passed the medicine bottles to him. Chapter 2207. Tong Ziqing's eyes were cold. I don't know. The young man took out the medicine bottle that he had just tossed into his sleeve and threw it at Tong Ziqing. I've just finished my headmaster's special training. I'm resting here and eating some snacks. Tong Ziqing did not understand what he meant. She took the bottle in her hand and looked down at it. Ziqing, show it to Lulu. Yiqing Luo said. Tong Ziqing handed it to Beiming Lulu. Beiming Lulu poured out 1 pill and placed it in front of her nose to sniff it as her expression turned into shock. Qing Luo, this is a high-grade medicinal pill, profound assembly pill. High-grade Xian gathering pill? Yiqing Luo was also rather surprised. A high-grade medicinal pill was worth 1,000 gold. On the other hand, the profound condensation pill was a medicinal pill used to consolidate the cultivation of profound earths and replenish their origin energy. If the high-grade profound gathering pellet was placed in an auction, it would definitely be fought over by countless cultivators. Of course, it was not to say that the Heavenly Academy did not have any top-grade Xian gathering pills. After all, the Heavenly Academy had Ghost Doctor, a master alchemist. However, Every class would be allocated high-grade Xian gathering pills according to the students' overall results. Even high profound class 2 could only get 2 bottles at most. Other classes would be considered lucky if they could get 1 bottle or 5 or 6 pills. For the past devil class, they were completely unable to get a single profound gathering pill. But that youth just said, was this the snack he ate after the special training? Just from looking at how this young man was stuffing Xian gathering pills into his mouth one after another, he was indeed treating them as snacks. It was the pill that every class dreamed of. In the class of gods, it was a snack for the students. Without comparison, there would be no harm. Even if they had Yiqing Luo, this extremely talented alchemist, and Beiming Lulu from the divine Dr. Beiming family, these 2 top-rated alchemists in the devil class, it was impossible for them to treat Xian gathering pills as snacks. Devil class students expressed, "What a waste of heavenly treasures. What a stab in the heart." Tong Ziqing looked at the medicine bottle in Beiming Lulu's hand, and then looked at the medicine bottle in her hand. There was no special change in the expression on her face. Even high-grade Xian gathering pills could be eaten as snacks. It was no wonder that he looked down on this kind of middle-grade medicinal pill. The class of gods lived up to its name. Tong Ziqing expressionlessly took the bottle and was about to put it back. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew against his face. Then his hand was empty. Tong Ziqing took a few steps back warily and looked up. The young man waved the 2 medicine bottles in his hands at her. "But, since this is a token of love from this little beauty, I will reluctantly accept it." Tong Ziqing's face darkened and her eyebrows furrowed. Why did this youth's words sound like he was teasing her? Before Tong Ziqing could speak, her arms suddenly tightened and her body suddenly fell back a few steps. Tong Ziqing was slightly startled and turned to look behind her. When she met a pair of icy blue eyes, a hint of joy surfaced in her eyes. Class monitor Long Yunzhan looked coldly at Tong Ziqing and pulled her behind him as he looked expressionlessly at that lazy young man. "Student, since medicinal pills to you are just ordinary snacks, then those 2 bottles of middle-grade medicinal pills, why do you need to take them?" The young man's brows rose as his gaze swept past Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing. "Little beauty's token of love, it's not valuable, so I naturally take it." Long Yunzhan frowned slightly. Chapter 2208. When he said that, the few people in devil class all froze. Even Tong Ziqing unknowingly clutched her sleeves tightly as she lowered her head, not daring to look at Long Yunzhan. She didn't open her mouth to stop the young man's question. When Long Yunzhan stood up and blocked in front of her, Tong Ziqing's heart was already soaring. The young man teased her. Was Long Yunzhan jealous? So that was why he stood out to help her? When she heard the young man asking, "That little beauty, is she your woman?" Tong Ziqing's heart almost jumped to her throat. She was anticipating Long Yunzhan's reply, but was also afraid of Long Yunzhan's reply. The others were well aware of Tong Ziqing's secret love for Long Yunzhan, so naturally they wouldn't interrupt this question. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. Based on her understanding of Long Yunzhan was afraid. Her expression congealed slightly as she was about to open her mouth to break this stalemate. But she heard Long Yunzhan's thin lips moving slightly as his voice was calm as he said word by word, "No." Devil class's students' breathing tightened. They all looked at Tong Ziqing worriedly. "No. No. No." 2 simple words as sharp as a blade, piercing towards Tong Ziqing's heart time and time again. Her eyes turned slightly red from the piercing. Her hands, which were hanging by her side, clenched tightly and clenched even tighter. Her usual cold and indifferent expression was unable to be maintained. Her eyelashes were trembling non-stop as though tears were about to flow out. The stubborn and arrogant Tong Ziqing. But because of these 2 piercing words, she almost threw away her helmet and armor. Yiqing Luo's heart ached as she wanted to go up to comfort her. But these two's matter was destined that outsiders would not be able to interfere. Before she had even taken a step, that Tong Ziqing who had lowered her head had already slowly raised her head. On her face she still had that arrogant attitude. Only the red rims of her eyes betrayed her feelings. "She is my very important brother. Your words are too frivolous and will ruin her reputation." Long Yunzhan's faint voice rang once again. He didn't turn back. As though he couldn't feel the stiff atmosphere. He didn't notice that the woman behind him had almost shed tears because of those two words. The lazy young man looked at the woman behind Long Yunzhan with interest. He waved the bottle in his hand again. How is this ruining her reputation? The little beauty had clearly said that she would lead the way and give him the medicine. Now that I have the medicine, I will naturally lead the way. Since you've led the way, isn't it only right for me to accept these 2 bottles of thanks from the little beauty? The youth's words were flawless. Long Yunzhan frowned and his eyes were cold. Behind him, the woman's cold voice sounded indifferently. Student, since you've accepted the gift, please lead the way. Tong Ziqing walked out from behind Long Yunzhan. Seeing Tong Ziqing, the smile on the youth's face widened. His curved eyes made him look even more dazzling. However, Tong Ziqing could sense the glint in the depths of his smiling eyes. It was as if he could see through her soul with a single glance. Tong Ziqing blinked her sore eyes, trying to calm her heart down. Ziqing. Long Yunzhan's tone was slightly heavy as he glanced sideways at the woman beside him. Towards you, he. No matter. Tong Ziqing interrupted him calmly. Finding the academy is more important. He didn't care. What was so important about the young man's feelings towards her? Long Yunzhan took a look at the young man and eventually didn't say a word as he retreated back to Yiqing Luo's side. Chapter 2209. The youth walked in front of Tong Ziqing. Tong Ziqing furrowed her brows and took a step back, putting some distance between them. She looked up at him. The youth stood tall and straight, a full head taller than her. Tong Ziqing's heart trembled. Looking at a youth from this angle, it really made the youth's face look extremely handsome. But her expression didn't change as she said faintly, "Please lead the way." The youth's lips curled into a mischievous smile. All of a sudden he bent his head down and planted a kiss on Tong Ziqing's forehead with lightning speed. The youth's clear voice rang in Tong Ziqing's ears. "Little beauty, remember my name. I am Si Minghan." He was already 10 steps away from Tong Ziqing when he finished speaking. No one had expected him to do this. Tong Ziqing seemed to be shocked. She stood there motionlessly with a look of shock on her face. After a long while her cheeks turned red and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. "You lecher. Is this how students from the class of gods behave?" Long Yunzhan reacted. He moved his palm and attacked in Si Minghan's direction. Si Minghan winked at Tong Ziqing and easily dodged Long Yunzhan's attack. "You want me to lead the way? Other than this gift, of course there are other gifts." Cold air emanated from Long Yunzhan's body. He attacked Si Minghan with his palm again. "I've already received the gift I deserve. Do you still want me to lead the way?" Si Minghan raised his eyebrows mockingly, completely disregarding Long Yunzhan's attack. After easily dodging it again, he took out a jade bottle from his sleeve and started eating snacks. Long Yunzhan's eyes were cold. He turned to look at the blushing Tong Ziqing and his blue eyes flashed coldly. "Lead the way," Tong Ziqing suddenly said faintly. Her voice was slightly hoarse but her emotions were calm. Long Yunzhan's attack paused and he frowned at her. Tong Ziqing's gaze was fixed on Si Minghan. She narrowed her eyes and said coldly, "Since you've received the gift, don't waste everyone's time." Si Minghan smiled and nodded. "You're right, little beauty. Let's go, I'll lead the way." As he spoke, he pushed open the door behind the phoenix statue and walked in. Tong Ziqing followed behind. Long Yunzhan frowned. "Ziqing, it doesn't matter." Tong Ziqing glanced back at him and smiled faintly. "It's more important to find the school." Then he followed behind Si Minghan. Long Yunzhan furrowed his brows and clenched his fists as he followed. The few devil class students behind him had a face of shock. He didn't understand at all. Why did things happen so strangely? "Qing Luo, what do you think? What kind of situation is this?" Yan Xiaoyi was also stunned. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. That fellow, he might have taken a fancy to our Ziqing. And it was love at first sight. Then what about the class monitor? Yan Xiaoyi also felt that the kid had taken a liking to Tong Ziqing. That brat's attitude towards her was so bad. But when he saw Tong Ziqing, he seemed to have changed into another person. But if someone fell in love with Tong Ziqing, wouldn't their class monitor continue to be single? Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips. Perhaps this Si Minghan's appearance timing is rather good. At least, it can let Zhou Xian understand his own heart as soon as possible. Earlier, Long Yunzhan's performance obviously showed that he cared about Tong Ziqing. Chapter 22:10. After stepping into that big door, that vast expanse of white, immortal qi had already disappeared without a trace. Yiqing Luo and the rest finally saw the surrounding environment clearly. A very standard class configuration. Right now, the place where the 11 of them were walking to was a small-scale training ground. There were 5 weapon racks placed around it. Yiqing Luo could tell at one glance that the weapons on the weapon racks were all at least of the pure grade and above. These weapons, although they weren't considered as top-quality weapons, but to be able to use pure-grade weapons, at least their reputation and ability in the pugilistic world were considered to be at a decent level. No wonder they were the class of gods. In this aspect they were just so heroic. Further ahead, it was another large-scale training ground. There were 2s and 3s of students dressed in white, sitting cross-legged in the middle of the training ground. The other devil class students didn't understand what was going on. What are they doing? Don't tell me. They're raising their internal strength? Bei Ming Lulu didn't know much about cultivation. The other students shook their heads. Maybe it's a special cultivation method in class of gods. Beside those students who were sitting cross-legged stood a male student. After hearing devil class's words, the gaze he shot towards them became extremely ridiculing. From his nose, there was even a disdainful cold ridicule. That student didn't conceal it. That cold humph was clearly transmitted over. Yan Xiaoyi's expression instantly changed. Qiao Jin hurriedly held her shoulders. We've just arrived, so if we can avoid trouble, try not to stir up any trouble. They're raising the level of their profound jade heart. The clear and melodious voice spoke slowly and slowly, speaking extremely clearly. Yan Xiaoyi's attention was also diverted. Qing Luo, you say? They're doing this to raise their profound jade heart grade? Didn't the profound jade heart grade follow the advancement of the profound grade and breakthrough? Could it still cultivate its own profound jade heart on its own? Yiqing Luo nodded, her charming eyes calmly swept past those 6 people who were sitting cross-legged. This training ground has been chosen very well, and the spiritual qi is very abundant. It's indeed especially suitable to nurture the profound jade heart. The others didn't quite understand what she was saying. The male student who gave a cold humph earlier had an extremely ugly expression on his face. Even Si Minghan, who was leading the way, couldn't help but look at Yiqing Luo. This student from the devil class was rather interesting. He even knew about nurturing the profound jade heart. In the entire Nirvana realm, there weren't many people who knew that profound jade heart could be nurtured after birth. This method was taught to them by a teacher from the upper realm. He didn't expect that this devil class student would be able to tell that they were nurturing their profound heart jade with a single glance. It seemed that this year's Heavenly Academy was quite interesting. It was no wonder that Xianxia was reluctant to come back after leaving the God class. The 2 students in the class of God had all sorts of guesses about Yiqing Luo. But what they didn't know was that Yiqing Luo was able to clearly see where the hearts of those students who were sitting cross-legged and nurturing their profound heart jades was also the place where the profound heart jades were nurtured. It shone with an extremely dazzling light. That light caused her profound heart jade to gradually become scorching hot. She forcefully suppressed the uncomfortable feeling transmitted from her profound heart jade. Narrowing her charming eyes, she stared at the place where those students' profound heart jades were. 6 students, 2 green light profound heart jades, 3 blue light profound heart jades, and 1 was actually an indigo light profound heart jade. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple. These 7 grades. There were actually students in the class of God who had attained indigo grade profound heart jade. Chapter 22:11. After passing through the second profound jade heart training ground, the front turned into a small path. At the end of the small path there were numerous small paths that branched off. Every path leads to a different place. Si Minghan explained as he pointed to those few small paths. That leads to the physical fitness training ground, that leads to the endurance training ground, and that leads to... He pointed one by one. Devil class's students' eyes were filled with astonishment. Class of gods really had all the facilities. Every training ground was specially built for this purpose. And all kinds of entertainment facilities. After Si Minghan finished pointing, his gaze shifted to Tong Ziqing, who had been following behind expressionlessly, and blinked. How is it, are you satisfied with my explanation? Feel that your gift of thanks is worth it, right? The handsome young man was extremely refreshing. Tong Ziqing was slightly stunned. Not knowing why, seeing Si Minggen's blinking look, that refreshing smile. She actually thought of 2 words. Clean. Sunshine. Right. Si Minggen's smile was extremely pure and clean. And there was a kind of look of a battle pet trying to please its master. Moreover, his entire person was like a beam of sunshine. When he smiled, she actually felt warm in her heart. Lead the way, please lead the way properly, don't disturb my brother. Long Yunzhan's body suddenly blocked in front of Tong Ziqing. He looked at Si Minghan expressionlessly, warning him. Si Minggen's brows rose as his smile disappeared. Brother? A real brother wouldn't specially disturb his brother's love right when it's about to arrive? Just you? The first time you see Ziqing and you're talking about love? Long Yunzhan shot a cold glance at Si Minghan. Haven't you heard of love at first sight? Si Minghan wasn't the slightest bit embarrassed as he said straightforwardly, at first sight, I'm already moved by this little beauty. His straightforwardness and no bashfulness made the other students in Devil class suck in a breath of cold air. As for Long Yunzhan, he only stared coldly at Si Minghan. The expression on his face was still expressionless. But Yiqing Luo could clearly feel it. Long Yunzhan's imposing manner at this moment dropped to the freezing point. And Tong Ziqing, who was standing behind Long Yunzhan, after hearing Si Minggen's words, couldn't help but be stunned. At first sight, he was moved. Si Minghan saw the surprise in her beautiful eyes. Si Minghan chuckled, Little beauty, don't tell me you don't believe in love at first sight? Love at first sight. Tong Ziqing's eyelashes trembled slightly. The moment he looked up, he saw a figure blocking his way. For some reason his eyes felt a little sour. She forced herself to hold it in and said in a hoarse voice, I believe you. How could he not believe it? She fell in love with Long Yunzhan at first sight. Once they saw each other, it was hard to forget. Ziqing. Long Yunzhan frowned slightly and turned to look at the woman behind him in confusion. His azure eyes gazed deeply at her. He also saw the redness in the woman's eyes. There was an inexplicable sense of irritation in his heart. There was a hint of impatience on his calm face. Did you also fall in love with him at first sight? He was protecting her. But she, on the contrary, spoke up for that lecherous wastrel? Tong Ziqing's red lips moved. Her beautiful eyes, which were slightly misty, clearly reflected the impatience on his face. Her heart felt a dull pain as her eyelids drooped. Class monitor, you can dislike me, but please don't insult my feelings towards you. She pushed Long Yunzhan aside and walked past him, taking quick steps forward. Chapter 22:12. Tong Ziqing glanced coldly at his outstretched hand and directly ignored it. Go to the academy and report to master. Si Minghan wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead he smiled even more joyfully. All right little beauty, whatever you say, I'll listen to little beauty's arrangements. His playful look didn't make Tong Ziqing's expression ease up at all. She followed behind Si Minghan expressionlessly, as they walked towards one of the small paths. Si Minghan had been whispering amusing words beside Tong Ziqing's ear as he kept on laughing. Tong Ziqing's cold attitude didn't affect Si Minghan at all. The other students in Devil class looked at the two of them who were 10 steps away from them. One cold and one hot, one noisy and one quiet. Somehow they felt. There was a very compatible feeling. Their goddess Ziqing had always been cold and aloof. Towards any strangers she wouldn't show any face at all. But she actually walked so close to a man whom she had just met for the first time. This was the first time in her life. The students subconsciously turned their gazes towards Long Yunzhan. To tell the truth, their goddess Ziqing liked the class monitor, but they had never thought highly of it. Not to mention the class monitor's character. If the two of them were to be together, wouldn't they create a cold atmosphere for each other every day? Moreover, the class monitor apparently had no thoughts on this aspect. He didn't even reciprocate the goddess's love. To a lady, how cruel was this treatment? Why are you looking at me? Long Yunzhan's expression was gloomy, as his azure blue eyes flashed with blue light, as though it was decorated with ice crystals. He was still the same, expressionless and extremely apathetic. But those students who had interacted with Long Yunzhan for a long time could clearly feel that. Long Yunzhan's low pressure could directly freeze someone to death. In case the brothers froze to death. Yiqing Luo walked briskly to Long Yunzhan's side as she lightly patted his shoulder. Ah Zhan, do you think that Si Minghan is reliable? Long Yunzhan's body stiffened. He glanced sideways as he looked at the little hand on his shoulder. His heart suddenly quivered. His gaze subconsciously looked towards Tong Ziqing's direction. Coincidentally, Tong Ziqing's gaze was also looking at him. After sensing his gaze, Tong Ziqing immediately retracted her gaze, as her eyelids drooped downwards. Long Yunzhan's body stiffened even more. Zhan. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly, as she looked suspiciously at the silent Long Yunzhan. Could it be that Si Minghan had used too much force on Tong Ziqing, causing Long Yunzhan to lose his mind? I'm fine. Long Yunzhan's eyes moved slightly as a sliver of panic flashed past. He raised his hand and moved Yiqing Luo's hand away from his shoulder. Si Minghan. That fellow, his actions are frivolous. One look and I know he's a frivolous playboy. I don't trust him. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as she smiled sweetly. Are you sure that it's because he's frivolous so you don't believe him? What else did you think it was? Long Yunzhan replied quickly. Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. One had to know that Long Yunzhan was a cold person with a poker face. Nothing seemed to leave any trace in his heart. No matter what happened, he was calm and indifferent, as if he did not care much. But on the matter of Si Minghan, his attitude was completely different now. If he didn't have Tong Ziqing in his heart, even if she was beaten to death, she wouldn't believe it. But Long Yunzhan, this little dragon, seemed to be too slow towards matters of the heart. Chapter 22:13. It wasn't appropriate for outsiders to interfere. To understand one's own heart, the most important thing was to face it squarely. Si Minghan kept an eye on Tong Ziqing's emotions. His gaze swept across Long Yunzhan's body as he lowered his voice and asked with a smile, "Little beauty, do you like him?" Tong Ziqing's eyes flashed and she lowered her head, ignoring Si Minghan. Si Minghan laughed to himself. "Little beauty, didn't he just deny that you're his woman? That means he doesn't feel that way about you. Why don't you be with me?" He raised his brows and struck a pose that he thought was extraordinarily handsome. He smiled brightly at her. "In terms of looks, I don't lose to him. In terms of strength, I think I'm stronger than him. I'm a student of the class of gods and I can help you with your cultivation. Even if you want to stay in the class of gods, I have that ability." Tong Ziqing stopped in her tracks. Si Minghan's eyes lit up and his smile grew even brighter. "Little beauty, you're a smart man. You should know who you choose to be truly happy with." Si Minghan reached out to grab Tong Ziqing's shoulder. Before he could get close, his arm went numb. Tong Ziqing's palm landed on his arm. The woman's expression was cold and her eyes were cold without a hint of emotion. "Si Minghan, do you understand me? Is it my face that you like, or are you trying to trick me?" Si Minghan hugged his numb arm. Tong Ziqing's palm wasn't vicious, but the numbing feeling was unbearable. He lifted his eyes and looked at Tong Ziqing's face. The mischievous smile on his face was replaced by a serious expression. "I really don't understand you, but I'm interested in you not because of your face, nor do I want to tease you." He paused, then continued, "I've said it before, I fell in love with you at first sight, not for any other reason, but because I felt my heart move the moment I laid eyes on you." First sight. Feeling my heart move. These two sentences echoed in Tong Ziqing's mind. Yes. She had also decided that Long Yunzhan was the man she wanted to follow the moment she laid eyes on him. She didn't doubt that Si Minghan's feelings were fake. She could even sympathize with him. But her eyelashes fluttered and her eyes were cold. She looked at Si Minghan indifferently. "But Si Minghan, if you really fell in love with me at first sight, you wouldn't have said those words to me." In Si Minghan's heart, she was the kind of woman who would sell herself to another man just because Si Minghan was stronger than Long Yunzhan in every aspect. She was the kind of woman who would sell herself to another man just to raise her profound level or stay in the class of gods. Then his love for her was really cheap. Si Minghan froze. "That's not what I meant. Whether you mean that or not, please don't bother me anymore." Tong Ziqing coldly glanced at him. Si Minghan pursed his lips and opened his mouth to say something. But when he looked at the faintly discernible hall in front of him, he suppressed the restlessness in his heart and said in a low voice, "Little beauty, I will use my actions to prove that I am serious about you." After saying that, he suddenly quickened his pace and headed straight for the direction of the academy. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared. The few students from Devil class looked at the direction where Si Minghan disappeared in astonishment. What were they talking about? Chapter 22:14. We're already at the classroom. Curb your curiosity and show your best state. Yiqing Luo looked at the direction where Si Minghan left and her eyes sunk slightly. From Si Minghan, we should be able to tell that the status of the class of gods in the Heavenly Academy is beyond our imagination. Moreover, the teachers of the class of gods are also from the upper realm. Towards ordinary students like us, they will definitely not give us any face. What we need to do is to learn how to improve ourselves in the class of gods so that we can become stronger. If there's any unhappiness, bear with it as long as you can. Of course, there's a limit to this tolerance. Once it exceeds that limit, needless to say, I'll do it myself. I still have the same old saying, we don't create trouble, but we're not afraid of trouble either. After Yiqing Luo finished her last sentence, her charming eyes swept across the few of them in the Devil class. The few of them immediately nodded solemnly. We understand. Yiqing Luo led the few of them towards the classroom. Long Yunzhan was still in a trance. When Yiqing Luo and the rest had already walked more than 10 steps, he then reacted and quickly caught up with Yiqing Luo's footsteps. Yiqing Luo gave him a meaningful look as she gave an ambiguous smile. In Long Yunzhan's heart, an inexplicable feeling of guilt welled up. Walking to the classroom entrance, Yiqing Luo's gaze immediately surveyed the surroundings. The classroom was extremely spacious. Inside there were neat and tidy white wooden study desks. Books were stacked on top of each study desk. More than 10 students dressed in white were leisurely sitting in the classroom, seemingly discussing something. A white-haired and white-browed elder stood at the desk where the headmaster was teaching. In front of him was Si Minghan. No one knew what topic the both of them were discussing. The elderly man's expression was rather grave. When Yiqing Luo and the rest stood at the entrance, the students in the class of gods immediately sensed their presence. At that moment, the entire hall fell into silence. All the students in the class of gods shifted their gazes towards the classroom entrance. The 11 young men and women stood at the classroom entrance, all dressed in blazing red class uniforms, like billowing flames and auspicious clouds, making one unable to take their eyes off of them. And the most eye-catching was the young lady at the front. Her red robe was like fire without any other adornments. Her black hair was like a waterfall, tied into a simple bun, held in place by a wooden hairpin. Her loose black hair fluttered in the wind. She had a face that could topple cities, a bright smile and an otherworldly temperament. She was the most dazzling existence among the 11 of them. A look of awe flashed across the eyes of the 10 or so class of God students. The old man also turned his gaze over. He was also slightly startled. The old man had naturally heard of the matter of the 11 Devil class students going to the class of gods for special training in the Heavenly Academy. However, he didn't expect it. These 11 Devil class students actually had such a terrifying aura. These children were only 15 or 16 years old. How could he have such a powerful aura? Very quickly, the elderly retracted his gaze and with a deep meaning in his old eyes, he opened his mouth in a dignified manner. A student of the Devil class, right? Come in. Yiqing Luo took the lead to walk in as she curled her lips towards the elderly man and spoke respectfully and politely. This must be the teacher in class of gods, Teacher Yu? Every time my master, the ghost doctor, mentions you, he would sigh that he has no fate to compete with you. Chapter 22:15. Yiqing Luo nodded with a smile. Yes, my master is ghost doctor. Teacher Yi's gaze towards Yiqing Luo had some changes. In Yiqing Luo's mind, the words which ghost doctor had said to her were reversed once again. My master also said in this heavenly academy, the only one who could make him admire is you, Teacher Yi. Before coming to the class of gods, Ghost Doctor and Old Man Gray, you had specially chatted with her privately about some matters regarding the class of gods. To prevent Yiqing Luo from being bullied in the class of gods, the two of them even specially told Yiqing Luo all the information they knew about the teachers in class of gods. Regarding EU and Teacher E, in actual fact, Ghost Doctor had viciously criticized Teacher E. But this insult, Yiqing Luo could feel it. The relationship between Ghost Doctor and Teacher E should be considered as not bad. That was why she had purposely dragged the Ghost Doctor out to show her face to Teacher E. At least in the coming month, at least on account of Ghost Doctor, Teacher E would more or less not be perfunctory about the Devil class's special training. After all, these were the experts from the upper realm. Facing the special training of students who weren't their favorite, they would definitely not put it to heart. Yiqing Luo specially came to the class of gods. She wanted these brothers of hers to have a better chance of advancement. Only by raising their own abilities. In future she could head to the upper realm with a peace of mind. Good. Ghost Doctor's disciple. That old man actually took in a disciple. Teacher Yi's eyes shone brightly as he sized up Yiqing Luo. You are? Alchemist? What level are you at? Yiqing Luo smiled elegantly. My main focus is on raising my profound grade and my own ability. So my alchemist level is currently preparing to break through to a Grandmaster Alchemist. Grandmaster Alchemist? Just a junior alchemist, and Ghost Doctor took her in as a disciple? He was very clear about Ghost Doctor's character. Someone who was afraid of trouble. How could he possibly take in a Grandmaster Alchemist as a disciple? Could it be that this student had heard from somewhere that he and Ghost Doctor were old acquaintances, so she intentionally mentioned Ghost Doctor, hoping that he would take care of her on account of Ghost Doctor's feelings? This thought caused Teacher Yi to frown deeply. It was no wonder that the people of the lower realm could only be inferior to others. At such a young age he was already thinking of crooked ways. A trace of displeasure flashed across Teacher Yi's eyes as he casually waved his hand. Alright, it doesn't matter if you're the Ghost Doctor's disciple or the Dean's disciple. In any case, you're now in the class of gods. Standing in the class of gods territory, you're just an ordinary student. He paused for a moment and then emphasized, a student, who can only stay for a month. Devil classes students. Teacher Yi's attitude changed so quickly. Just a moment ago he was still discussing about Ghost Doctor with Yiqing Luo, as though they were having a good time. In the next instant his expression changed. He even emphasized that they could only stay for a month. He made it sound like they were going to shamelessly stay in the class of gods and never leave. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. She noticed the changes in Teacher Yi's emotions. Just now, when Teacher Yi heard about the Ghost Doctor, his attitude became slightly better. But immediately after, it was filled with disgust. It was obvious that he wasn't venting his anger on them because he hated the Ghost Doctor. Teacher Yi might have misunderstood something. But Yiqing Luo had no intention to explain. To these proud and arrogant people, it was impossible for them to do anything. Chapter 22:16. What Teacher Yi said is right. Yiqing Luo smiled slightly. Teacher Yi frowned as he stared at the extremely beautiful face in front of him. There was a strange feeling surging in his heart. This young lady's looks were out of this world. Compared to the ladies he had seen in the upper realm, she was several times more beautiful. This kind of beauty wasn't just her outer appearance, but the kind of temperament that she exuded. A peerless temperament. No matter what he said, the young lady would always smile humbly and warmly. As though she totally didn't care what he said. She regarded him as the headmaster whom she respected. Even though he knew that this young lady was opportunistic and did some unorthodox things to get his attention. But he still didn't hate this young lady. I guess. This must be the female boss of Devil class, student Yiqing Luo. Suddenly, a lady's sarcastic voice floated from below the counter. An extremely beautiful female student in white clothes stood up. The female student's temperament was outstanding and her looks were outstanding. Coupled with the self-confidence that she exuded. If she was in the academy, she would absolutely crush that Xianxia into dregs. Student Yiqing Luo is quite famous in the academy this year. Every corner of the academy is discussing about student Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo is so powerful, I really admire her. The female student scoffed lightly as her lips curled into a sneer. In the coming month, I hope I have the chance to have a good spar with student Yiqing Luo. Playing such a big game the moment she opened her mouth? But she liked it. Yiqing Luo looked at the female student with a warm smile. I also have the same intention. Devil classes students have always admired the students from Class of God and have long wanted to have a showdown with the students from Class of God. If there's this chance, our Devil class will definitely be very happy. When she said that, not only that female student's expression changed. Even the other 10 over students from Class of Gods had a change of expression. Devil class students, weren't they too daring? They actually wanted to compete with them, just based on a bunch of trash like them? It was simply a waste of their time. This group of Devil class students had obtained too much glory in Heavenly Academy, so they were so inflated that they couldn't extricate themselves? Yan Yu. Si Minghan, who was standing beside Teacher Yi, scolded the female student in a low voice. Don't bring the rumors from the outside into the class of God and ruin the atmosphere here. A trace of resentment appeared on the pretty face of the female student named Yan Yu. Si Minghan, what right do you have to criticize me? Just for that bunch of trash? I'm telling you, don't meddle in this matter. You're a student of the class of gods, yet you're so overbearing towards students from other classes who came for special training. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that you were always paying attention to the students from other classes, worried that this student Yiqing Luo would surpass you. Si Minghan mocked with a hidden meaning. His words had clearly pierced Yan Yu's heart. Yan Yu's expression changed drastically. She slammed the table and flew towards Si Minghan. She raised her palm and attacked Si Minghan. Devil class students. They started fighting just like that? The devil class students turned their heads in unison and looked at Teacher Yi. Heavenly Academy absolutely did not allow students to kill each other. Was it really alright for them to start fighting in front of Teacher Yi? Unexpectedly, Teacher Yi actually took a step back and gave up the battlefield to them. Chapter 22:17. What was going on? Could it be that in the class of gods students were allowed to kill each other? Bam! A loud sound was heard as the table was split into pieces. Si Minghan lazily avoided Yan Yu's attack as he glanced at her disapprovingly. Don't waste your energy and time, I'm not interested in fighting with you. Yan Yu put on a humiliated look as she gritted her teeth and attacked again. Instantly, the classroom was filled with the sound of ping-pong fighting. The students in class of gods looked as though they were used to it. Devil class's students stared at the two of them exchanging blows, memorizing the techniques and details of the two of them. As for Yiqing Luo, she was recalling the conversation between Si Minghan and Yan Yu. It seemed that the amount of information was a little too much. Yan Yu asked Si Minghan to mind less about this matter. This matter was obviously related to their devil class. Yan Yu wanted to deal with devil class? Why? Their class of devils seemed to mind their own business with the class of gods, right? Moreover, the class of gods had such a high status they must be proud and arrogant. They would absolutely not cross paths with the devil class, which was known as Trash Class 1, right? Yiqing Luo was deep in thought. Teacher Yi, on the other hand, was sizing up the students of the devil class. Seeing them staring at the two who were still entangled with each other, their eyes gleaming. Somehow, this bunch of youngsters who looked extremely young and had no talent seemed to be learning the moves and techniques of the two who were entangled with each other. They shouldn't be able to understand such profound things. Just at this moment, suddenly a deep and furious roar was heard from outside the classroom. What are you bunch of rascals doing? Didn't Yun Duan, that old fogey, say that he would send the top class students to the class of gods today? Why are you still making a ruckus? Are you trying to let the outsiders see us as a joke? Following that, a bam sound was heard. The classroom's door was kicked open. A fat old man dressed in a loose white robe walked in while rubbing his fat tummy. The two who were entangled with each other immediately stood apart. The entire place was silent. Even Teacher Yi could not help but straighten his back. The chubby old man's gaze fell on the 11 people standing by the table. The students from the class that won first place have already arrived. He raised his chubby palm and touched the back of his head. Since you're here, follow me to your place to rest. You'll officially begin your special training in the afternoon. The devil class students could tell. This chubby old man had an important position in the class of gods. They nodded and said, "Thank you, headmaster." The fat old man smiled, the fat on both sides of his face piling up. I'm the physical training master of the class of gods. They call me Fat Master or Fat Elder. You guys can call me that too. The devil class students looked at each other and said in unison, "Fatty teacher. Go. I'll take you to where you'll be staying for the next month. You are here for special training. You must seize every moment you have and not waste your time," the fat teacher said as he turned around and walked out of the classroom. Yiqing Luo bade farewell to Teacher Yi and led the devil class's students to follow them out. The fat teacher looked very approachable and his tone was very down to earth. There was no trace of the upper realm's aloofness. Chapter 22:18. Yiqing Luo had the same feeling in her heart. This fatty master was definitely not as approachable as he appeared to be now. It was very clear from the attitude of the students in the class of gods towards fatty master. The 11 of them remained silent. Even Yiqing Luo didn't speak a word. Only the fat teacher explained the rules of the class of gods in a concise and comprehensive manner. He didn't care if these students in devil class listened to him or not, nor did he care if the students in devil class would respond to him. As long as he did his job well, that was enough. When they returned to the forked entrance, the fat teacher stopped in his tracks and asked calmly, "Before you came, some students had already pointed out the places that these paths lead to, right?" The students in devil class were stunned as they nodded in puzzlement. Fatty Master moved his body away. "Which road is the direction to the dormitory?" The students in devil class understood that this was a test of their memory. Ni Ruopan pointed to a small path. "This is the road that leads to the dormitory." Fatty Master's gaze paused on Ni Ruopan for a moment before he nodded. But no expression could be seen on that fat face of his. The other students in devil class felt their hearts tighten slightly. The fat master squinted his eyes and said, "So, have you memorized the other paths?" The students in devil class looked at each other in dismay. After receiving Yiqing Luo's gaze, the few students began to point one by one towards a road. "This is the direction to the physical fitness training ground. This is the direction to the endurance training ground. This is..." One sentence at a time. Without any mistakes, all the roads were pointed out. The fats on Fatty Master's face jiggled, as if he didn't expect these students to be able to remember all the complicated passages here clearly. One must know that in the past years, they were all elite students who were selected from the high profound class. These students, every time they entered the class of gods, it was as if they had entered some strange place. Towards anyone they would be fawning. Towards anything they would be shocked and curious. Totally not a single bit as though they were here for special training. Every time he asked those students where did these small paths lead to, those students would all be at a loss. This was the first batch of people who were able to accurately memorize these routes. It seemed that other than the high profound class, there were other elite students in the Heavenly Academy. The fat teacher did not speak again. He stroked his plump chin, lifted his leg and walked to a remote path on the far right. "That seems to be the path to the combat training forest. Fat teacher, are we going to the dormitory?" Before the devil class students could even say the word ma, the fat teacher had already walked on that path and had no intention of turning back. Devil class's students looked at each other. Was the fatty teacher satisfied or dissatisfied that they could remember these paths? If they were afraid that they, the non-god students, would be dissatisfied with the class of gods route after memorizing it, there was nothing they could do. Under Yiqing Luo's training, they had long formed the habit of memorizing the surrounding topography no matter where they went. They remembered every single one of these forked paths clearly. He couldn't forget it even if he wanted to. "Let's go." Yiqing Luo didn't understand the fat teacher's meaning. But she knew clearly that choosing these small paths and identifying the direction which the small paths led to were just a small test. From the moment they entered the class of gods. Chapter 22:19. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, the devil class's students no longer hesitated as they followed behind Fatty. This was the path to the actual combat training forest. As they walked, the surrounding trees became more and more luxuriant. After walking for about the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the surroundings were already densely packed, extremely luxuriant towering trees. As far as the eye could see, branches were connected to branches, leaves were connected to leaves. Tiny sparks of light shone through the gaps between the tiny leaves. The ground was covered with fragmented light. Following behind the fat teacher, they turned left and right for a while in the lush forest. Fatty's footsteps stopped on an empty patch of grass. This was probably the only place in the entire forest that was not covered with trees. It was about the size of a training ground. There were remnants of ashes around and a piece of cleared space in the middle. There were also leftover wood which should be traces of a campsite. Apparently, this was a place where the students from the class of God would occasionally stay. And the time they stayed was not short. What was Fatty trying to do by bringing them here? "This will be the place where you will be staying for the next month." Fatty pointed to the empty patch of grass and said calmly, "Stay here." Yan Xiaoyi frowned. Fatty nodded as his eyes shone brightly. "You are here for special training, not to have fun. This is also a part of the special training. Don't tell me you can't take this hardship, right?" Yan Xiaoyi frowned. "This is not a matter of whether we can take the hardship or not. It's not impossible for you to let us stay here, but you can't not give us anything, right? If it was outside or on the battlefield, do you think the enemy will prepare what you want for you? Fatty narrowed his eyes and replied calmly. You. Yan Xiaoyi had no words to refute. Xiaoyi. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped Yan Xiaoyi. She slowly walked up and looked at Fatty Master calmly. We understand, we will stay here. Thank you, Fatty Master, for your trouble. A greasy smile appeared on the Fat Master's oily face. His narrow eyes carefully sized up the female student in front of him. From the first sight of this young lady, he could feel that she was different. It could also be seen that this young lady was the backbone of the students in Devil class. He had heard of this group of students before. It was once a famous class of trash, and each of the students had suffered a lot of oppression and humiliation, causing their personalities to become abnormally twisted. To be able to make that group of problematic students submit to a young girl. This really made people want to find out what method this young lady used to subdue the Devil class. Then have a good rest. After noon you will train together with the students from the class of God. Fatty Master withdrew his scrutinizing gaze from Yiqing Luo. Although you are students of the class of devils, you are after all elite students who have fought your way up through several rounds of competition. Even if you train with the students of the class of gods, you don't need to feel too much pressure. Just maintain a normal state of mind. The Devil class students did not feel any pressure as they responded in unison. The fat teacher glanced at the students one by one. Remember to report to the fitness training ground after noon. After saying this, the fat teacher turned around and left. Without waiting for the Devil class students to stop him, Fatty teacher's figure had already disappeared into the dense forest. Chapter 22:20. This is also a part of the special training. Everyone stop talking and start to build the place that we will be sleeping in for the next month. Yiqing Luo looked around. Alright, it's not our first time camping outside, using the sky as our cover and the ground as our hut. There's still 4 hours before noon, let's make use of the time to set up camp. Devil classes students were wailing incessantly. But their actions were starting to set up camp in an orderly manner for the place that they were going to sleep at. They should be thankful that ever since they followed Yiqing Luo to complete the mission in the Magic Beast Forest, they had developed a habit of bringing along a space pocket specially prepared for camping. From the pocket they took out the tents, bedding and some simple daily necessities. Then they divided the work. One by one the tents started to be set up. A few masters who were far away in classroom room were currently gathered in front of a stone which was about the size of a table. Above that stone was impressively the scene where Yiqing Luo and the rest were training in the forest. Fatty Master touched the 2 pieces of fat on his face as he smacked his lips. Originally I wanted to make things difficult for this bunch of students, but I didn't expect that. They were already prepared. Ahaha. Only this bunch of students would bring along camping equipment with them. Another master who was leaning lazily against the wall, Master Shenqing, gave a sloppy laugh. To tell the truth, since the establishment of the class of gods, they had never seen any foreign students who were able to spend a month in the class of gods safely. This class called the Devil class was really interesting. In their imagination, this bunch of students should be asking them for help soon. But they had not expected that they actually brought along their own camping equipment. And looking at their actions of setting up camp, searching for firewood, starting a fire, etc., they were so familiar with it that they looked like wanderers who were out all year round. This year's special training, I feel that it's much more interesting. Master Yi stroked his beard, although he didn't like Yiqing Luo's character, but towards her and the rest's unperturbed attitude he admired it very much. The few of them pointed at the stone and discussed. They sighed inwardly at the familiarity of these students towards camping. At this moment a gentle voice suddenly sounded from behind him. What? You bunch of teachers with your eyes growing on top of your heads are actually interested in the students of the Devil class who are known as the Trash Class 1? A few of the masters turned around and saw a lady in her 30s walking gracefully towards them with graceful steps. When the teachers saw the girl they moved away. The students in this class are indeed not ordinary. Come over and take a look. I guarantee that you will be attracted by this group of students. The woman snorted and stepped forward disapprovingly. Coincidentally, the image of Yiqing Luo pointing to a tent appeared on the stone, talking to a student about something. The lady's vision was fixed on Yiqing Luo's face. Her expression suddenly froze. By May, do you know this female student? Teacher E noticed the change in the girl's expression and asked casually. The girl pursed her red lips, curled her fingers and shook her head. I don't know her, but this female student is too beautiful, it makes me doubt her ability. We have a lot of time to verify her ability. If it's a bunch of mud that can't even hold up the wall, then we don't need to waste time. Master Xinqing shrugged his shoulders, disapproving. Chapter 22-21. The three of them looked at Bai Mei's hurried back as a trace of suspicion flashed past their eyes. Earlier when Bai Mei saw one of the devil class's students' face, she obviously revealed a strange expression. Bai Mei knew that student called Yiqing Luo? But why would she deny it? Forget it, a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. We are all men, we can't guess a woman's thoughts. Teacher Xinqing stretched lazily and couldn't be bothered to think further. Teacher E stroked his white beard. Ever since those two came to the class of gods, Bai Mei's thoughts were all on them. She should be in a hurry to meet them. At the mention of those two, the faces of the other two teachers turned ugly. Practice makes perfect. These 4 words perfectly explained how Yiqing Luo and the others managed to settle all the camping matters in less than 2 hours. Looking at the 11 tents in front of them, the devil class students wiped their sweat. If we can't survive in the future, we can still help others to set up tents to make a living. Useless. The devil class students rolled their eyes. The few students started to laugh and joke around. Yiqing Luo stood under a big tree and drank the water from the water bag. She made use of this period of time to get a general understanding of the environment here. This place was similar to the Heavenly Academy's Heavenly Training Forest. But compared to the one in the Heavenly Academy, this place was even more torturous. This grassland should be specially made by the few teachers in the class of gods to train the students, to provide a place for the students to rest. The surroundings of this grassland were also set up with enchantments. If one didn't sense it carefully, one wouldn't be able to detect it. Setting up camp on this grassland, there was no need to worry about being attacked by the magical beasts. But out of this grassland, for example, they were on the way to other places in the class of gods. That might not be the case. The magical beasts here were at least intermediate and advanced level magical beasts. If they met, although it wouldn't affect them much, but it would be too troublesome. Yiqing Luo expressed that her Qi and her Qi Yan were not awake yet. Otherwise they could use the sacred beast's power to suppress those magical beasts, which would save them a lot of trouble. Everyone take a break, we have special training with the students in the class of gods in the afternoon. The intensity of the special training here should be more tiring than in the lower realm. So seize the time to rest and face the challenge in the afternoon. From the fatty teacher's attitude she could roughly guess. The afternoon would not be so relaxing. At the other end of the classroom the 3 masters couldn't hear anything. They could only read Yiqing Luo's lips and knew what she was saying. Teacher E stroked his white beard and said, "This young lady has good leadership skills at such a young age. If she is properly nurtured, she will definitely become someone great in the future." The other 2 headmasters did not respond. After that, their pupils constricted. The red-clothed girl in the stone spoke again word by word. "You'll be training with the class of gods students in the afternoon. Since you're new here, don't even think about showing off. In any case, he's a student taught by a powerhouse from the upper realm. We should at least save him some face." Teacher Yi's eyes widened. Did he see wrongly? Teacher Xinqing squinted his lazy eyes and stared intently at the girl with a serious face inside the stone. The fat teacher, on the other hand, held the fat on both sides of his cheeks. His eyes, which were like slits, did not reveal any extra emotions. This girl, where did she get her confidence from? She actually said, "Leave some face for the students in the class of gods?" Chapter 22-22. It was almost noon. The devil class's students didn't expect the class of gods to prepare lunch for them. The 11 of them huddled together and took out their rations and water bags from their space pockets to replenish their energy. After they finished eating, Yiqing Luo calculated the time. There was about half an hour left, which was 30 minutes. She wiped her hands and stood up. "Let's walk to the physical fitness training ground to digest the food." The 10 devil class students immediately stood up. By the time the 11 of them arrived at the physical fitness training ground, it was not noon yet. There were 15 students dressed in white standing at the training ground. 3 masters stood at the outer perimeter of the training ground. When they saw Yiqing Luo and the rest rushing over before the time limit, their faces revealed a look of astonishment. It was especially so for the fatty teacher. His tiny eyes were like slits, but one could see the surprise in the depths of his sparkling eyes. He had personally brought the devil class's students to the actual combat training forest. He was the clearest about the terrain there, because these students had clearly remembered the directions of the few small paths in the class of gods. He had purposely brought along a winding path in the actual combat training forest. He didn't specifically say that he wouldn't be picking them up for the afternoon training. He just wanted to test if the devil class's students' memory was really heaven-defying to be able to remember all the terrain. Fatty Master was sure. Even if the students from the class of gods were here, they might not be able to remember the exit of the forest clearly. But the devil class's students did it. Moreover, he did it without any difficulty at all. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Yiqing Luo saw quite a number of people standing at the training ground the moment she arrived and immediately led the students forward. Fatty Master's fats trembled. No problem, you all arrived within the stipulated time. Yiqing Luo smiled modestly. Master Xianxia lifted his eyelids lazily. Speaking of which, little fellows, have you had your lunch? Fatty old man's special training is very brutal. If you haven't had your lunch, you might die of exhaustion on the training ground. My special training is brutal? What nonsense are you talking about? Fat Master stared fiercely at Teacher Xianxia before shifting his vision onto Yiqing Luo and the rest. But what that old man said is right. If you haven't had your lunch, you should hurry up and eat now. The special training in the afternoon is more physical, and if you haven't completed the mission, you are not allowed to leave the training ground and you are not allowed to eat. Do you hear me? Yiqing Luo continued to smile modestly. We have already eaten our rations, thank you for your concern. We understand the rules of the special training and we have no objections. The way the three masters looked at the devil class was getting weirder and weirder. This foreign class of students was really different from the previous years. Such a student. Why would he be in the devil class with the reputation of trash class 1? Since everyone is here, let's start the special training now. Students, stand properly. The fat teacher looked at the few of them and suddenly shouted. Then he raised his hand and pointed towards the direction of the devil class students. All of you stand over there. He then pointed to where the students of the class of gods were standing. The devil class's students walked over. Before they got close, they heard Yan Yu's sarcastic voice. Stay away from us, a bunch of trash, don't drag down our class of gods. The devil class's students stopped in their tracks. Tong Ziqing raised her beautiful eyes and her icy cold gaze swept past Yan Yu's face. Chapter 22-23. Yan Yu was pierced by her gaze and her beautiful face twisted into a hideous expression. You useless thing. How dare you look at me like that? Believe it or not, I will dig your eyes out. Tong Ziqing's lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile as she sneered. The quality of the students in the class of gods really makes me look at you differently. What did you say? The students behind Yan Yu bellowed angrily. Tong Ziqing's red lips twitched in disdain as she said word by word. It seems that not only the quality of the students in the class of gods is worrisome, their brains aren't that good either. Trash from the devil class. You. Tong Ziqing's words made the students in the class of gods fly into a rage. In the eyes of the students in the class of gods, this bunch of students from the devil class were just a bunch of lowly ants, a bunch of useless things. They couldn't be bothered to have any friction with these ants and useless things. This bunch of useless things weren't worthy of their attention. But Tong Ziqing's words were obviously looking down on the class of gods. They, the dignified students of the class of gods, were actually humiliated by a piece of trash. But just as Yan Yu and a few familiar students were about to teach the devil class a lesson, Teacher Yi bellowed in a deep voice, Enough! What are you all doing? This bellow made the students in the class of gods restrain their temper unwillingly. They stared at the devil class students with hatred before retracting their gaze and lowered their heads, obediently not daring to say another word. Teacher Yi frowned as he swept his gaze across the students in the class of gods. Following that, his gaze fell onto Tong Ziqing. This student, you came to the class of gods to undergo special training. If you don't have the heart to undergo special training, my class of gods will not be able to accommodate you. Teacher. Si Ming Han stood out from the class of gods student area and called out in a low voice. But he was stared back by Teacher Yi's fierce glare. Tong Ziqing remained expressionless, as though she wasn't affected at all by Teacher Yi's words. This nonchalant look made Teacher Yi feel a surge of anger. Just as he was about to open his mouth, he saw Yiqing Luo walking slowly towards Tong Ziqing. The corners of her lips curled up and she smiled calmly. Teacher Yi, what Ziqing said actually makes sense. Teacher Yi's face darkened. Yiqing Luo didn't seem to have noticed, or perhaps she had noticed, but she didn't care much and continued. Class of God students are the brightest glory of the Heavenly Academy, representing the existence of the entire Heavenly Academy. As a representative student of the Heavenly Academy, she had such a low quality and was always arrogant. It's fine within the Academy, but if this gets out, wouldn't we become a laughing stock? Students from the class of gods are spoiled and arrogant? Yiqing Luo's voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. He spat out each word slowly and steadily. The words that entered his ears couldn't be any clearer. Teacher Yi opened his mouth but found himself unable to refute Yiqing Luo's words. It was a fact that Yan Yu was the first to provoke the devil class students. Indeed, it was Yan Yu who was too arrogant. The class of gods was in the wrong here. There's one more thing. Yiqing Luo's smile grew brighter and brighter. Her charming eyes glowed brilliantly and flowed with light, causing her charming and drop-dead gorgeous face to seem like a blooming rose, and she emitted an unparalleled charm that captivated the soul. She stared unblinkingly at the students from the class of gods. She was obviously so charming and alluring. But the students from the class of gods could sense the contempt and ridicule from Yiqing Luo's smile. Chapter 22-24. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly as she slowly opened her mouth. From what I see, the students in the class of gods have occupied the school's abundant resources, which resulted in your current ability. I wonder, where did you get your sense of superiority from, feeling that you're cut above the rest? She paused for a moment and dragged the last syllable as she ridiculed coldly. Oh? Is it from the fact that you have many times more abundant resources than the other students, that you find a sense of superiority? Yan Yu stared at Yiqing Luo as her petite body trembled in anger. Yiqing Luo smiled brilliantly. Don't be in a hurry to fly into a rage out of humiliation. This student, as a member of the devil class, I have to be very serious and solemn to tell you something. Just like what Teacher Yi said, our devil class came to the class of gods for a month of special training. As outsiders, we are not so silly as to have any conflict with the students of the class of gods when we just arrived. I think there shouldn't be anything in our devil class that is worth a student of the class of gods like you to waste your time to ridicule and humiliate us, right? Of course, even if you have this time, it doesn't mean that the other students have this time, nor does it mean that our devil class has this time. I sincerely hope that this student, you can stand on the reputation of the class of gods and stop wasting everyone's time, alright? Yiqing Luo's voice was sweet and her tone was calm, with a gentle and courteous smile. Yan Yu was so angry that her pretty face twisted. You lowly trash. How dare you humiliate me? I want. Yan Yu. Teacher Yi's face was steely green as he berated her. Did Yan Yu feel that she had not embarrassed herself enough? Although Yiqing Luo's words were too targeted, but every word and sentence she said was irrefutable. They were the students of the class of gods. They were the high and mighty class of gods. Did they need to waste their training time to humiliate a foreign class? This was not only a waste of everyone's time. It was also a disgrace to the class of gods. Yan Yu's face turned ashen when she was berated by Teacher Yi. She pursed her lips in grievance and lowered her head, not daring to say another word. The entire training ground fell into a dead silence. After Teacher Yi finished his roar, he turned his gaze towards Yiqing Luo. In his mind, he was still thinking about how to reprimand Yiqing Luo. But he saw Yiqing Luo's slender brows slightly raised, her clear and charming eyes. Her face was like a bottomless cold lake, suffused with traces of chilliness. She smiled sweetly and said, Teacher Yi, since that student knows his mistake, we, the devil class, are not narrow-minded people. Let's forget about today's provocation. Don't waste everyone's special training time. Yiqing Luo. Yan Yu was so infuriated that his entire body was trembling. That bitch. What right did that little slut have to say that he would forgive her? He even flattered himself? Not a petty person? In other words, were the class of gods petty people? Teacher Yi was also rendered speechless by Yiqing Luo's words. Seeing this, the other two teachers cleared their throats. Yes. Don't delay the special training. Put aside any personal matters. It's time for the special training now. Chapter 22-25. That was to say, no matter how much the devil class's students could withstand, they would undergo special training according to the physical qualities of the students in the class of gods. On this point, the high profound class 2 students who had come to the class of gods for special training also followed the same method. Of course, those students of high profound class 2 were carried out of the special training every day. In the eyes of the devil class students, a bright ray of light shot out. They were eager to try and smiled. All right, teachers, please try your best to train us. The students in the class of gods were infuriated by Yiqing Luo's words. Hearing the devil class's students reply, their lips twitched in disdain. Now they agreed to it. Later on they would have a good time. A bunch of waste, how dare they try to compare with the class of gods. Just as both parties were in formation, Pan suddenly thought of something as she weakly raised her arm and looked at Teacher E in embarrassment. That's right, teacher, I have a question. Speak. Teacher E spat out one word expressionlessly. We will be staying in the training forest for the next month. Then after the special training, where should we go? To clean ourselves up. Pan expressed that this question was very important to a lady. Teacher Yi's face sunk slightly. They hadn't even started the special training and they were already thinking about how to clean themselves up after the training? If they were so fond of looking pretty, then why did they join the special training? Seeing Teacher Yi's displeased expression, Yiqing Luo pulled Pan over and whispered, Elder Yun Duan said that after the special training mission is over, we can return to the devil class. Although her voice was low. But Yen Yu, who was standing on the other side of the class of gods, heard it clearly. Immediately he couldn't hold it in as he sneered, the special training mission is over? Do you think the class of gods is the same as your waste class's training method? Not only Yen Yu, the other students in the class of gods also looked at the devil class with ridicule. Even Teacher E sneered. Yen Yu glanced at Yiqing Luo in disdain. You're right about one thing. Class of gods is a cut above the rest. We are the most elite students in the academy. Not only do we have more resources than you, the training we have received has also far surpassed yours. The special training of our class of gods is not that easy to complete. To be honest, even the students in our class might not be able to complete the special training tasks given by the teachers on time. Another student from the class of gods said, pretending to be kind. Previously, the elite students of high profound class 2 were all carried down from this training ground. For your devil class to be able to get first place this year, it was all because of luck. Do you really think that just because you got first place you're invincible? As students of the class of gods, I would like to give you a piece of advice. There is always someone better out there, so don't be too arrogant. The students of the class of gods were full of disdain. Although the students of the class of gods couldn't be bothered to waste their breath on these useless people. But thinking of what Yiqing Luo said earlier, it was indeed a slap on the class of gods' face. Hearing Yiqing Luo mention that the special training mission had ended and she still had to return to devil class, they could not help but laugh. Even for them, they might not even have the strength to move after completing the special training tasks set by the teachers. This bunch of useless people actually fantasized that they could complete the special training mission. The students of high profound class 2 were carried down from the training ground, but it doesn't mean that we will be carried down. Chapter 22-26. Class of gods students looked at Yiqing Luo in disdain. At this point in time she still wanted to be stubborn. Following that, Yiqing Luo's next sentence made their faces turn green. You may not complete the mission on time, but it doesn't mean that we can't. Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. Outstanding temperament, peerlessly beautiful appearance. Plus the confidence when she said this. It was inexplicable, which made them believe that she would definitely be able to complete these special training missions. Yen Yu was the first to recover from Yiqing Luo's aura. Her face was filled with emotions. Yiqing Luo, I know you are very arrogant in the academy, but this is the class of God, please restrain your arrogance. Yiqing Luo raised her brows and gave Yen Yu a meaningful look. From the moment Yen Yu called out her name she had been suspicious. How did this Yen Yu student from the class of gods know her name? Moreover, he had a deep hatred for her. Now hearing Yen Yu talk about her in the academy, Yiqing Luo roughly understood. Yen Yu should have left the class of god and heard about her. But class of god students had always felt that they were on top, a cut above others. In their eyes, students from other classes in the Heavenly Academy were lowly ants. Because of this, students from the class of God disdained to leave the class. As for the matters in the Heavenly Academy, they rarely went to understand. Only Xianxia, who liked to be in the limelight and enjoyed the feeling of being surrounded by the stars, would make use of his identity as a student of the class of God to flaunt his prowess in the Heavenly Academy. Thinking of Xianxia, Yiqing Luo's gaze towards Yan Yu flickered slightly. This Yan Yu knew her and specially inquired about her matters in the academy. Could it be because of Xianxia? Otherwise, why was he targeting her from the start? Si Minghan suddenly took small steps over. He took a look at the silent Tong Ziqing and lowered his voice to Yiqing Luo. Student, on account of the little beauty, let me remind you that in the class of God, the masters love to train arrogant and disobedient people. So no matter how well you do in the Heavenly Academy, this is after all the class of God. Although his words were directed at Yiqing Luo, however, his eyes were fixed on Tong Ziqing and did not move away. The reason why he reminded them was not because he cared about the consequences of the devil class. He was only worried. The arrogance of the devil class would only harm the little beauty. Yiqing Luo smiled without saying a word. Back then, every student who entered the class of gods was extremely arrogant. In their eyes, they were favored by the heavens and possessed innate talent that surpassed ordinary people. That's why they were arrogant and prideful. However, after the training, whether it is their temperament or self-esteem, they will be completely eroded by the training. The fat teacher, who had been silent all this while, broke into a smile. The two chubby chunks of meat swayed back and forth. I'm very curious, after a month, how much of your arrogance has remained. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her long and narrow eyes sparkled with brilliant luster. For some reason, her body emitted a chilling aura, as if it could freeze everything in the surroundings into frost. She smiled sweetly and charmingly as if she was in a dream. We shall wait and see. The scene was once again silent. The gazes of the three masters all fell on the students of the devil class. Those students from the class of God were also stunned by the aura released by Yiqing Luo. Wasn't this devil class student a little too arrogant?